comics. They're this incredible universal language. But have you ever stopped to think about why a hero from Japan feels so different from a hero from America? Well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a trip around the globe and decode this secret language to see what these stories really tell us about the cultures that create them. Okay, so when I say comics, what's the first thing you picture? For a lot of us, it's Comic-Con, right? You've seen the pictures, I know you have. These massive crowds, the costumes are just insane. They've become these huge cultural events.
But here's the thing. It's so much more than just costumes and celebrities. What if all that spectacle is actually a window, a peek into something way deeper? It's like a secret map that shows us what different cultures really care about, what they look for in their heroes, their stories, and yeah, even in themselves.
And to really get this, you gotta understand one crucial thing. Not all comic conventions are created equal. In fact, some of them are on completely different planets, metaphorically speaking.
Okay, let's take a look. On one hand, you've got San Diego Comic-Con. It's a beast. It's basically Hollywood's biggest party, a launchpad for the next big blockbuster movie or TV show. It's pure pop culture spectacle. But then you hop over to France, and you have the Angoulême Festival. This is a totally different vibe. Here, comics are treated like high art. It's all about finding and celebrating independent creators. So you see, right away, you have these two totally different philosophies, a commercial powerhouse versus an artistic incubator. And that contrast, it's the perfect lead into our first stop, Japan.
All right, Japan, when it comes to comics or manga, they're an absolute titan, a giant. And for decades, their insane success can be traced back to this one, surprisingly simple but unbelievably powerful core idea. And here it is. This is the secret sauce, the DNA of Shonen Jump, which is maybe the most influential manga magazine of all time. They call it the Golden Trio: friendship, effort, and victory. That's it. It's this simple emotional formula that has been the engine for some of the biggest stories we've ever seen. Think about it. The powerful bonds of friendship, the gut-wrenching effort it takes to get better, and then that final amazing feeling of victory. It's basically a recipe for pure, unfiltered inspiration. And if you want proof that this formula works, just look at these numbers. And this is just from 1 year. Jujutsu Kaisen, nearly 31 million copies. Demon Slayer, over 29 million. These aren't just good sales figures. This is a cultural tidal wave. And it's all built on that simple foundation of friendship, effort, and victory. But, it can't just be a formula, right? There's got to be more to it. And there is. The reason these stories connect with literally millions of people is because they use that framework to explore themes that are totally timeless, totally human. I mean, think about the all-time greats. Slam Dunk isn't just about basketball. It's about how painful and awkward it is to grow up. Dragon Ball is the perfect mix of crazy fights, fun adventure, and genuinely funny moments. Captain Tsubasa, that manga literally inspired a whole generation of real-life soccer players because it was all about persistence and chasing a dream. And Sakigaki Otokojuku, pure loyalty and brotherhood. So yeah, the formula is the engine for sure. But these universal themes, that's the heart. Okay, so now let's hop across the Pacific and head to America. Because back in the 1960s, a totally different kind of revolution was brewing. And it was all thanks to one guy, Stan Lee, who had a radical idea. What if superheroes were a little more like us? See, before Marvel really hit its stride, most superheroes were, well, perfect. They were practically gods living in these made-up cities like Metropolis or Gotham. But Stan Lee and his crew, they just completely flipped the script. Their heroes were messy, they were flawed, they got anxious, and they lived in a very, very real New York City. And they had real-world problems, the kind we could all understand. I mean, take Spider-Man. Peter Parker wasn't just fighting Dr. Octopus. He was a stressed-out kid worried about how he was going to pay rent and take care of his Aunt May. The Fantastic Four had the Thing, a guy who was just permanently grumpy about being, a giant rock monster. The Hulk was this brilliant scientist who had an uncontrollable monster living inside him. And the X-Men, they were the ultimate outcasts, hated and feared by the same society they were trying to save. This was a complete game changer. For the very first time, people could actually see themselves in these superheroes. And this quote from the man himself, Stan Lee, it just says it all. This whole world-changing revolution, it wasn't some master plan to build a media empire. It was way simpler, way more human. He said he just hoped the books would sell so he could keep his job. And that humble, relatable starting point, it's literally baked into Marvel's DNA. So we've seen the two giants, Japan and America, but now we're going to turn to a story that a lot of people don't know, and honestly, it might be the most dramatic one of all. This is the story of Taiwanese comics, and it's a story about pure, unbelievable resilience.
Seriously, the history of comics in Taiwan, called manhwa, is a total roller coaster. It kicks off with this amazing golden age in the 50s and 60s, which then slams into a wall because of really strict censorship. Then it has this big comeback in the 80s, only to get almost totally wiped out in the 90s when Japanese manga just flooded the market. And now? Now it's in the middle of a third wave, a conscious, government-supported effort to bring it all back.
And when I say strict censorship, I want you to understand just how intense this was. To get a real sense of it, you have to see the kinds of rules these artists were dealing with. We're not just talking about toning down the violence. This was about controlling every single tiny detail of a story. Just get a load of some of these. Animals are not allowed to talk. Can you imagine? Robots cannot have free will. Your hero can't be too much of an individual, because that's not good for teamwork. You can't even have death ray guns. It's almost funny, but think about it. How are you supposed to create anything interesting with these kinds of bizarrely specific rules? They completely suffocated the entire industry. So the big question is, how do you even begin to come back from that? Well, in 2010, the government stepped in and helped establish the Golden Comic Awards. And this is so important because it completely redefines what success means. The goal isn't to sell 30 million copies like in Japan. The goal is to preserve Taiwanese culture, to celebrate real artistic talent, and to help a new generation of local storytellers find their voice.
And their mission today is incredibly powerful. The idea is to make comics the locomotive of Taiwan's story industry. That's the engine that's going to pull everything else forward. And they're doing it by focusing on stories only they can tell. Stories about their history, their society, their unique identity.
Okay, so we've been all over the map. What does this all mean? When you put it all together, Japan's inspirational formula, America's flawed heroes, Taiwan's incredible fight for its own voice, you start to see this one powerful thread that connects everything. It's this: comics are so much more than just entertainment. They're a mirror. They reflect a culture's biggest dreams, its deepest struggles, its core values, its own unique way of looking at the world. It really is a global language. And that leaves us with one final big question. We've seen the epic sagas of Japan and the everyday heroes of America. We've seen a culture like Taiwan fighting to tell its own story against all odds. So whose story is coming next? What new voices, what new perspectives are just waiting to be told?
Welcome back to The Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a massive global sweep of the comic industry.
We really are.
We've got this immense stack of sources, and our mission is to analyze everything from these huge international conventions to, hard economic data.
And crucially, a really surprising story of national resilience in the face of, well, some pretty intense censorship.
It's a huge topic. So we're really looking at comics as this global cultural and commercial phenomenon.
Right. It goes so far beyond just cheap entertainment.
Yeah.
And to frame this whole thing, I think we have to start where the modern industry really took shape.
The U.S.
The U.S., yeah. Specifically with Marvel's patriarch, Stan Lee.
Yeah.
He started at Timely Comics way back in 1939.
And that history is so important because it really sets the stage for a revolution. Before Marvel, you had heroes like, DC's Superman and Batman. And they existed in these perfect, almost mythical cities, Metropolis, Gotham.
They were otherworldly. But the sources show that the early 1960s, that's when everything changed. Marvel decided to revitalize the whole business with heroes who were explicitly flawed.
Deeply human.
Exactly. Think of Spider-Man trying to pay rent.
Or the Hulk wrestling with self-control, Iron Man and his inner demons.
And the thing that grounded it all was the setting. They weren't in these fake cities.
No, they were in New York City.
Right. They were worrying about rush hour traffic, paying bills. And that gave them this immediate, gritty connection that just separated them from everyone who came before.
And that really became the blueprint for character development everywhere.
That foundational shift, human problems in real places.
Yeah.
That's what we see in influencing comic creation all over the world today, even as the power centers have shifted.
Okay, so let's unpack that. If comics are this universal language, where are the biggest meeting spots? Where is the culture actually gathering?
Well, you have to highlight the two undisputed titans, the top festivals globally. On the North American side, You've got the San Diego International Comic-Con, SDCC.
Of course.
It started really small in 1970, just a mini-con, but now it's the largest in the Americas and globally the second largest comprehensive exhibition.
And the sources are really clear that SDCC it's not just a comic event anymore.
Oh, not at all. It's a full-spectrum media launchpad.
Right.
Its influence transcended sequential art years ago. It's now completely integrated with Hollywood.
So that's where they drop all the big movie trailers.
Precisely. Film and TV studios use it for major announcements, trailer drops, fan interactions, like when Marvel invites the actors who play the heroes to meet the fans.
Sure.
It's the ultimate nexus of comic IP and blockbuster cinema.
So with that level of commercial intensity, is there a European counterpart that keeps a pure focus on the art itself?
Absolutely. For that, we shift to the Angoulême International Comics Festival in France. It's Europe's oldest, started back in 1974, and it deliberately focuses on encouraging independent and artistic creation. It's ranked alongside SDCC globally, but culturally, they are total opposites.
So how does Angoulême create that kind of artistic immersion?
What's so fascinating is how the festival takes over the entire town. It's not just in some convention center.
The whole city becomes the venue.
The whole city. City Hall, museums, cafes, even the walls of old buildings are used for exhibits, for documentary screenings, music concerts. It feels like a complete cultural immersion, not a trade show.
We should probably give a quick mention to the other critical hubs in the sources. In the U.S., there's New York Comic-Con.
Right, NYCC, the East Coast giant. It's a massive market, attracts over 100,000 people, so it's crucial for promotion.
And it's famous for something else, too.
Yeah, the sources note it's famous for really high-level cosplay, just because, NYC is a fashion capital. It's this unique blend of fandom and artistry.
And then beyond the big conventions, you have these really prestigious, specialized events.
Especially for animation. France shows up again with the Annecy International Animated Film Festival, founded in 1960. It's basically the Cannes for animation.
And in Asia.
In Asia, you have the biennial Hiroshima International Animation Festival. It was established in 1985 specifically to promote world peace through animation. It often honors figures like Tezuko Osamu.
You know, the geography of this is so interesting. Brussels, for instance. It doesn't have one single massive con, but it holds an official title.
Yeah, Brussels is dubbed the world comics capital, and that's all about legacy.
The Smurfs and Tintin.
Exactly, birthplace of those classics. The culture is literally built into the city, right down to an annual cartoon balloon parade. But the most dynamic shift we see, that's in Osaka, Japan.
Ah, Nipponbashi. This is a perfect case study of a place changing because of culture.
It really is. From the 50s to the 70s, it was just an electronics wholesale district, very practical. But then home gaming exploded, the Famicom era in the 80s and 90s.
So it naturally started attracting different kinds of shops.
Right? Model shops, anime goods, and then specialized otaku and gaming retailers.
So how does this old electronics hub compete today with, say, Akihabara in Tokyo? What's its modern appeal?
The focus now is all on experience, not just buying stuff. And it's heavily fueled by social media.
So people want to do things, not just own things.
Exactly. Modern visitors, especially international fans, they want immersive experiences. Themed cafes, cosplay events, photo spots. They want to share the trip online, not just the loot they bought.
Which makes it perfect for platforms like Instagram.
Totally. It blends local culture with these huge global IPs like Pokemon and One Piece.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. We've mapped the global scene. Now let's look at the engine room. Japanese manga.
Right.
The sales figures are just phenomenal. But the sources highlight this really important distinction between what's hot right now and the classics that have real endurance.
And the contrast is really sharp. If you look at the 2021 Oricon sales rank, that's just pure volume sold. The newest blockbusters are totally dominant.
Like Jujutsu Kaisen.
Jujutsu Kaisen at #1 with over 30 million copies sold. Then Demon Slayer, Tokyo Revengers, massive current hits.
But then you look at the fan poll, 150,000 people.
Yeah.
And they tell a slightly different story.
Exactly. When fans voted for the greatest manga of all time, the results show that, depth and theme are what really matter for endurance.
So who came out on top?
One Piece took first. Demon Slayer was still strong at second, but Slam Dunk, a series from decades ago, landed third.
Wow. So while sales show the current fever, that poll shows what sticks. Which brings us to the foundational canon. Let's start with the one that arguably defined the entire genre, Dragon Ball.
Dragon Ball is timeless because of its synthesis. It didn't just tell a story, it created a blueprint. It combined adventure, humor, and just relentless martial arts action.
And its appeal is built on these really simple, powerful themes.
Unwavering friendship and sheer determination. That's it.
And specific moments from it resonate for decades. I mean, Goku is a global icon, and his Kamehameha move was ranked by fans as the #1 special move of that whole generation. That's real cultural weight.
It's the kind of success that influenced everything that followed. Now, contrast that action fantasy with the grounded realism of Slam Dunk.
Yes, Slam Dunk is iconic because it makes you feel the sweat and pain of the game.
The strength of Slam Dunk is that it realistically depicts the struggles, the emotional and physical growth of these high school basketball players.
It really emphasizes teamwork over just talent.
Exactly. It makes the point that individual talent is secondary to commitment to the team, which gives it this lasting value far beyond just sports.
And the character arcs in Slam Dunk they're just so powerful. The sources cite them over and over.
Well, take Mitsui. His backstory is incredibly moving. How he fell so hard, lost his way, and then fought like hell to get back to the sport he loved.
His story proves that persistence can change your future.
It really does. And then Rukawa's the perfect foil. He's the guy who lets his actions speak for him. Silent, but always performing.
Then we have Captain Tsubasa, which has this phenomenal global reach.
Yeah, the sources show that Captain Tsubasa directly inspires young soccer players all over the world. It turns the game into these grand, dramatic, emotional moments.
And finally, we have to mention the truly absurd one, Sakigeke, the Tokojuku. This is a real wild card.
It definitely is. It occupies its own unique corner of the canon. It's famous for mixing this really absurd comedy with intense martial arts battles.
Exaggerating masculinity to a hilarious degree.
Oh, yeah. And the protagonist, Momotaro, is that classic silent genius. He hides his true power behind this relaxed attitude and only unleashes it when he absolutely has to.
Okay, so let's shift now. From this story of market dominance to a narrative defined by incredible external pressure and just hard-won resilience.
Right.
Taiwan's comic industry, or Taiman, offers such a profound contrast to Japan's story.
The history is really sharply segmented into 3 waves. It starts with the first wave in the 1950s and 60s, which was the martial arts golden age.
Comics like Zhuge Silang.
Exactly. They were popular because martial arts were a safe theme in that political climate, and the visual format really helped because public literacy was still limited.
But that boom came to a brutal, abrupt halt. The sources call it the Dark Age. And it was all triggered by one piece of legislation in 1967.
The 1967 censorship policy. The regulations governing the editing and printing of comic books. It was a death blow. The rules weren't just restrictive, they were often arbitrary and just bizarre.
Reading these rules, you realize they made creation almost impossible. The sheer pettiness of it all is shocking.
It was bureaucratic madness. I mean, to prevent children from believing in fantasy, animals were completely banned from talking.
No talking animal.
Nope. And robots couldn't have free will. They couldn't have infinite power, and they definitely couldn't participate in crime.
They even discouraged teamwork by saying heroes couldn't be too individualistic.
It's unbelievable. And if a creator somehow navigated all those impossible rules, they still face all these administrative hurdles and fee-based reviews just to publish.
So what was the consequence?
Immediate and catastrophic. Creators just gave up. And this regulatory vacuum, it starved the local market, which led directly to the rampant spread of pirated Japanese manga.
So a whole generation grew up reading unauthorized translation.
Or decades, yeah.
So when censorship finally eased, that led to the second wave in the 1980s, the 100 Flowers Bloom.
It was a relief. Works like Oolong Academy exploded in popularity. You had over 30 local comic magazines in circulation. But this momentum was short-circuited again in the 90s.
But this time it wasn't censorship, it was international law.
Precisely. The change in copyright laws allowed the formal entry of the Japanese giants we just talked about.
Dragon Ball, Slam Dunk.
All of them, legally taking up shelf space. And you couple that with the rise of cable TV and video games, and the local market just couldn't compete.
So the third wave, the modern revival, it had to be a national effort to even happen.
It's a powerful example of state-supported cultural renewal. Starting in the 2010s, the government launched the Comic Creation and Marketing Subsidy, the Manfujin.
And it's funded a lot of work.
Over 700 Taiwanese comic works to date. That consistent support is just crucial.
And establishing a dedicated platform was key to regaining legitimacy, right?
Absolutely. The CCC Creative Collection, started in 2009, was a vital platform. It provided this centralized, high-quality, government-supported home for creators,
giving their work visibility and cultural legitimacy.
which led to unprecedented cultural status. I mean, the National Palace Museum holding a major retrospective for cartoonist Zhang Wen in 2018. That was a historical first.
And now modern Taiwan has its own identity.
It does. It focuses on local history, cultural issues, LGBTQ+ themes, and it's gaining international awards in places like France and Japan.
And the government really emphasizes that commitment with the Golden Comic Awards.
The GCA, established in 2010, is the national highest award. It celebrates creators, industry workers. It's the final piece of evidence that this support has successfully elevated comics into a recognized, sophisticated art form.
So this deep dive has really shown us the sheer scope of the global comic canvas. We move from the commercial giants like SDCC to the artistic focus of Angoulême, through the powerful character-driven stories of Japanese classics, to the hard-won, government-supported resurgence of Taiwan's comic industry.
And if you synthesize the lessons from the most enduring works,
Yeah.
whether it's Dragon Ball proving the value of determination or Slam Dunk showing that persistence defines your future,
Right.
the true power of this medium is its ability to communicate these universal themes, even under incredible pressure.
Which brings us to a final thought for you to chew on. Considering the strict, nearly impossible hurdles that Taiwanese creators faced under those 1967 censorship rules, where creating stories about talking animals or robots with free will could get you shut down. If you had to use only one of the themes famously emphasized by the Japanese classics, friendship, effort, or victory, to explain how the Taiwan industry survived its long, dark age and achieved its current revival, which theme would you choose and why?